A massive, ancient bronze mirror hovered in the sky. The space surrounding it appeared particularly distorted at that moment, as if the very fabric of space could no longer withstand it and was about to shatter. The scene looked as though this small space could not bear such a terrifying artifact. Everyone's gaze was fixed on the judgment mirror, their eyes filled with awe and amazement. This level of artifact was likely something many had never seen in their entire lives. Does the upcoming top 4 clash have anything to do with the judgment mirror? From what Dean Tiansheng said, it seems so. Well, that's interesting. A murmur spread through the crowd, with many people feeling confused. This year's top 4 clash seemed somewhat different from previous years. Instead of a simple draw for the final battle, a different approach had been adopted. But it was precisely this that raised everyone's expectations. After all, the 5 great academies had never summoned an artifact like the Judgment Mirror before, so now they were getting a rare treat. Of course, it wasn't just the spectators who were puzzled. Even the 4 teams on the battle stage turned their surprised gazes toward the Judgment Mirror. They, too, seemed to have no idea how the upcoming top 4 clash would unfold. Under the collective gaze of thousands, Dean Tiansheng stood with his hands behind his back, a faint smile on his face. For the upcoming top 4 clash, your 4 teams will enter the Judgment Mirror. Your only objective is to emerge from the mirror. If a team fails to have even a single member step out, that team will be disqualified, and they will be deemed to have lost. Mu Chen and the others' expressions stiffened. It seemed the test inside the Judgment Mirror was so dangerous that even complete failure could result in the team's disqualification. While the 5 great deans were controlling the test, ensuring no lives would be lost, a loss meant the loss of the chance to contend for the championship. Do you all understand? Dean Tiansheng asked, looking at the 4 teams. The 4 teams nodded in response. Since that's clear, Dean Tiansheng gave a slight nod and then turned to the other 4 deans. Let the Judgment Mirror begin. At the same time, the 4 deans stood, and each of them clenched their palm. For ancient bronze seals appeared in their hands, glowing with light. 5 beams of light shot out from the seals and struck the dust-covered mirror surface of the Judgment Mirror. A low humming sound reverberated through the air. The massive bronze mirror slowly began to rotate. As the Judgment Mirror turned, the surrounding space began to crack and distort, revealing jagged space fissures, dark and deep. As the mirror turned, the dusty surface slowly cleared, becoming bright and luminous, with a faint glow that seemed to pierce through the barriers of space. On the battle stage, the 4 teams all wore serious expressions as they stared at the increasingly bright mirror surface. Go! Mu Chen took a deep breath. He said nothing more, merely waved his hand and shouted in a deep voice. With a flash, he shot forward, turning into a streak of light that streaked across the sky and plunged directly into the Judgment Mirror, quickly disappearing. Behind him, Luo Li and the other 3 followed immediately. At the same time, the other 3 teams didn't hesitate and charged into the mirror as well. As the 4 teams vanished, the mirror surface of the Judgment Mirror grew even brighter, until massive images began to form. It was the images of the 4 teams. In this space, everyone's eyes widened as they watched the test from the Judgment Mirror unfold. As Mu Chen and the others entered the Judgment Mirror, a blinding light erupted in front of them. But the light lasted only an instant before vanishing. Once the light dissipated, Mu Chen and the others instinctively entered a state of alert. Their spiritual energy enveloped their bodies, their muscles tense, and their eyes scanning the surroundings warily. Then, their expressions changed. It seemed they were in the depths of an ocean that was somewhat chaotic, boundless, and as far as the eye could see, there was no end in sight, giving off a sense of unfathomable mystery. Beyond their team, there was a faint light barrier, which isolated them from the chaotic ocean. Despite this, an indescribable sense of oppression continued to invade. This ocean, it seems to be entirely made up of condensed spiritual energy, Mu Chen said, his gaze fixed on the chaotic ocean beyond the light barrier. His eyelid twitched slightly as he spoke. Hearing this, Shen Songxing and the others' faces changed in alarm. They stared at the chaotic ocean beyond the light barrier in horror. Is this really all pure spiritual energy? It's been condensed into a tangible ocean. How terrifying is that? What's even more chilling is that they seem to be right in the middle of this terrifying ocean of spiritual energy. Realizing this, Chen, Songxing, and the others' faces turned pale. Even though the chaotic ocean wasn't being controlled by anyone directly, the pressure of the spiritual energy alone was enough to make them struggle. Mu Chen scanned his surroundings and noticed 3 other light barriers in the distance, each belonging to one of the other 3 teams. They, too, were observing the unfamiliar terrain. In the next 10 breaths, the light barrier protecting you will shatter. The end of this ocean of spiritual energy is directly above you. Here, you can use any means at your disposal to reach the end. If any team fails to have even one person make it out, they will be disqualified. As Mu Chen was observing the surroundings, a deep voice suddenly rang out in their ears, Dean Tiansheng's voice. Upon hearing this, Mu Chen and the others' expressions tightened, and their bodies became tense. 10 breaths passed quickly, and the atmosphere inside the light barrier became almost suffocating. Crack. When the 10th breath passed, the surrounding light barrier dimmed, and with a sharp crack, it shattered into light particles and dissipated. With the barrier gone, the terrifying ocean of spiritual energy surged in, completely submerging the 5 of them. The overwhelming pressure of the spiritual energy spread like a tidal wave. Mu Chen's body erupted with black lightning almost instantly. The Thunder God body was activated, and the lightning flashed, but even so, his body still sank slightly. The crushing force of the spiritual energy, coming from all directions, felt like it was trying to crush him into pieces. Beside him, Shun Songxing, Li Xiantong, and the other 2 had already activated their internal spiritual energy to form a protective shield on their bodies. However, their bodies still sank several yards, their faces flushed with strain. The only person able to keep up with Mu Chen was Luo Li. Such strong spiritual energy pressure, Luo Li said, her face slightly solemn. Fortunately, the ocean of spiritual energy wasn't being manipulated to target them. Otherwise, they would likely have been severely injured in an instant. Mu Chen nodded. He looked into the distance, where faint lights appeared. It seemed the other 3 teams were also doing their best to adapt to and resist the pressure of the ocean of spiritual energy. We charge forward, Mu Chen said, gazing at the chaotic color above the ocean. It was almost impossible to see the end, suggesting that this spiritual energy ocean wasn't going to be easy to escape from. No matter how hard it was to get here, they had to finish the path ahead. Okay. Luo Li nodded lightly. Seeing this, Mu Chen took a deep breath. The black lightning around his body grew even brighter, and 6 thunder runes appeared rapidly on his chest. With a stomp of his foot, a shock wave blasted out, scattering the liquid-like spiritual energy, and his body shot upward like a streak of black lightning. Black lightning crackled around him, resisting the terrifying pressure and compression from the ocean of spiritual energy. Luo Li quickly followed behind him, her spiritual energy flowing rapidly on the surface of her body. Using a clever technique, she relieved some of the pressure and maintained her speed. Not far behind the 2, Shen Songxing and the others gritted their teeth and followed closely. The environment felt like being stuck in quicksand, and their internal spiritual energy was being consumed at an alarming rate. In the distance, the other 3 teams also moved. Outside the mirror of judgment, everyone was fixated on the clear mirror surface. Within it, 20 beams of light were rapidly tearing through the chaotic ocean of spiritual energy. Although they weren't physically present, they could still feel the terrifying spiritual energy pressure radiating from the mirror of judgment. It made them inwardly shudder. If it were them in there, they would likely struggle to move even a step, let alone reach the end. In the sky above, the 5 deans were also watching the mirror of judgment. They gazed at the 20 light beams, each with a different expression in their eyes. I wonder how many will actually make it out of the mirror of judgment this time? Dean Tiansong of Azure Sky Spirit Academy smiled faintly, speaking with great interest. The Judgment Sea is not so easy to cross, Dean Tiansheng of the 10,000 Phoenixes Spiritual Academy said with a faint smile. His eyes were deep as he looked into the clear mirror, and he slowly added, I think, this time, The number of those who can make it out won't exceed the fingers of one hand. Whoosh! In the chaotic ocean of spiritual energy, dozens of light beams flickered like swimming fish, with overwhelming spiritual energy rippling around them, resisting the terrifying pressure from all directions. Compared to their speed in the outside world, these dozens of light beams were clearly slower now. The spiritual energy pressure of this ocean of spiritual energy had reached a nearly terrifying level. To advance even a step in such a place required consuming vast amounts of spiritual energy. So, even though these four teams were all top-tier experts, it was impossible for them to pass through this ocean of spiritual energy without any obstacles. Because of the spiritual energy pressure, just a few minutes into the trial, the abilities of each team member began to show. For example, in Mu Chen's team, Mu Chen and Luo Li were at the very front, with Shan Songxing and Li Xianong about 10 yards behind them, and Su Xian further back. Though Shan Songxing and the others were pushing their spiritual energy to the limit, they still couldn't catch up to the two in the lead. Similarly, the other three teams were also being distinctly separated from each other. Su Xian, in the back, felt her face flush slightly. The spiritual energy flowing around her body was becoming increasingly disordered. They could sense that her spiritual energy wouldn't hold out for much longer. Need help? Mu Chen's voice, wrapped in spiritual energy, reached Su Xian's ear. Su Xian gritted her teeth, shaking her head. Looks like I'll fall behind. From here on out, it's up to you all. Don't stop for me. Su Xian knew that her role wasn't to drag Mu Chen and the others down. After all, this trial didn't require all of them to make it through the judgment seat. Only one person from their team reaching the end would be considered a success. Mu Chen and the others hesitated for a moment before nodding. This wasn't the time to be indecisive and stop to help a teammate. We'll go ahead. You be careful, Mu Chen said, then took a deep breath. The black lightning surrounding his body grew even more brilliant. With a stomp of his foot, the liquid-like spiritual energy beneath him shattered, and his speed surged once more. Luo Li's jade-like hands also silently formed a seal. A flowing light membrane seemed to form around her body. Unlike Mu Chen's brute force, she employed a more subtle approach, alleviating some of the spiritual energy pressure in a clever manner, allowing her to maintain her speed. Behind them, Shan Songxing and Li Xiantong could only smile wryly. Though their situation was somewhat better than Su Xian's, the rapid consumption of their spiritual energy made it clear they couldn't keep up with Mu Chen and the others at the same pace. Swish! The four of them formed two front and rear teams and quickly surged forward. In the distance, the other three teams were also experiencing a clear separation, though their first teams only had their respective captains ahead. The sound of liquid spiritual energy being cut through rang in their ears like flowing water. However, everyone's faces were grim. Their bodies tensed in a defensive state as they raced through. Despite the seemingly calm appearance of the Judgment Sea, there was a subtle unease in the air. Mu Chen's gaze flickered slightly as he stared at the tranquil Judgment Sea. In a moment, his eyes suddenly narrowed, as he faintly sensed that the surrounding spiritual liquid seemed to be growing increasingly violent. Be careful, Mu Chen warned in a low voice. As soon as his words fell, Luo Li's delicate face changed slightly. She quickly exclaimed, "Watch out below!" Mu Chen's heart tightened. He turned his gaze downward and saw a massive spiritual vortex suddenly appear in the ocean of spiritual energy below. The vortex was slowly rotating, like a giant mouth, swallowing toward them. The vortex emitted a strong suction force, slowing their speed significantly. Shan Songxing and Li Xiantong were at the bottom. Their faces instantly changed as they found themselves caught within the range of the vortex's pull. Their speed became as slow as a snail, and they even began to drift backward little by little. Damn it! Shan Songxing and Li Xiantong's faces turned grim as they pushed their spiritual energy to the limit, only to find that the vortex was spinning faster and faster, drawing closer to them. Go ahead. Li Xiantong furrowed his brow, suddenly grabbing Shan Songxing's arm and forcefully pushing him forward. His body was then blasted backward by the repulsive force, ultimately being swallowed by the spiritual vortex. Shan Songxing used that force to temporarily escape the vortex, but he still wore a wry smile. After all, this was merely a temporary delay. Whoosh, whoosh. While Mu Chen and his group were facing trouble, the other three teams encountered the same issue. The massive spiritual vortex, like a sea beast, erupted with suction, swallowing up those who were lagging behind. Everyone's scalp tingled as they realized that the Judgment Sea had finally begun to show its true power. Swish! Everyone accelerated to their maximum speed, quickly soaring through the dense liquid spiritual energy, desperately trying to outrun the vortex that was chasing and swallowing them from below. Chen Zongxing also pushed his spiritual energy to its limits, his face flushed as the overwhelming spiritual energy around him pushed away the oppressive spiritual liquid. Under his desperate resistance, the vortex chasing him below was finally shaken off. When the suction force disappeared, Chen Zongxing breathed a sigh of relief, cursing aloud, "Damn thing. Watch out." Just as he relaxed, Mu Chen's sharp shout suddenly rang in his ears. Chen Zongxing turned around in shock and saw a vortex eerily forming amidst the chaotic spiritual energy on his right. Before he could react, it sucked him in without warning. Mu Chen and Luo Li exchanged a glance, shocked that in less than 10 minutes, their team was down to just the two of them. Fortunately, it seemed that other teams had suffered even worse losses. Originally a team of 15, now only 4 team leaders remained. However, Mu Chen and Luo Li couldn't afford to think about that now. They could sense that the Judgment Sea had completely erupted. The liquid spiritual energy began to surge wildly, with countless spiritual vortexes appearing out of nowhere, like giant mouths trying to devour them. At this point, their path forward was all but blocked. They not only had to resist the terrifying spiritual energy pressure, but also constantly guard against the vortexes that could appear beside them at any moment. In such harsh conditions, even within less than 5 minutes, beads of sweat appeared on Mu Chen's forehead. Outside the Mirror of Judgment, countless spectators stared in shock at the 5 figures struggling desperately in the Judgment Sea. The occasional spiritual vortex that appeared by their side sent chills down many spines. It was clear that the Judgment Sea was far from something easily crossed. Damn it, Mu Chen has been sucked into a vortex. In the area of Azure Sky Spirit Academy, Yi Qingling's face suddenly changed. She saw Mu Chen, who had been racing forward in the Mirror of Judgment, suddenly get pulled into a vortex he couldn't avoid. Such a vortex shouldn't be able to trap him. Don't worry. As soon as her voice fell, Yi Qingling and the others saw a brilliant burst of black lightning erupt from Mu Chen's body. His speed soared, and he broke free from the spiritual energy vortex, which made them all breathe a heavy sigh of relief. However, the spiritual energy vortex ahead will only grow stronger. If we get trapped again, it could be a big problem, Lingxi said, her beautiful eyes fixed on the Mirror of Judgment. Upon hearing this, Yi Qingling and the others couldn't help but feel a sense of tension rise within them. In the chaotic Judgment Sea, "Are you all right?" Luo Li asked, gazing at Mu Chen, who had just broken free from the vortex of spiritual energy. Mu Chen shook his head. The 7th lightning rune had already appeared on his chest, indicating that in order to escape the grip of the vortex, he had pushed his thunder god body to its limits. "Be careful. The vortexes are getting stronger," Mu Chen warned. The spiritual energy vortexes that were appearing now could reach hundreds of meters in size. The spiritual energy within them was raging to a terrifying degree. Even if one could break free, it would surely cause a huge drain. With multiple encounters like this, it would likely be unsustainable for even them. "They probably aren't in a good position either," Luo Li said, her eyes glancing at the 3 figures in the distance. Mu Chen nodded slightly, then the black lightning beneath his feet exploded, his speed increasing once again. Seeing this, Luo Li immediately followed suit. The two assisted each other, and although the journey was perilous, they fortunately made it through without incident. Their speed even seemed to be slightly ahead of the other 3 teams. In the distance, Ji Xian tapped his toe lightly, his figure darting like a ghost, avoiding a spiritual energy vortex. His eyes then narrowed as he glanced at Mu Chen and Luo Li in the distance. At this point, only the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy still had 2 members left. If they managed to continue, it might not be too favorable for the other teams. Ji Xian's gaze flickered, and he subtly turned his attention to another direction, towards the location of Shui Tianhe. Their eyes briefly met, and they gave a barely noticeable nod, a trace of a cold, sinister look flashing in their eyes. Whoosh! In the chaotic judgment sea, Mu Chen and Luo Li's figures flashed by like swift fish, their movements incredibly agile. They dodged and accelerated, evading the spiritual energy vortexes that constantly appeared ahead. However, the spiritual energy pressure in the judgment sea was overwhelming. Every movement here consumed far more spiritual energy than outside. Therefore, even Mu Chen and Luo Li's state was deteriorating under the immense strain. Sweat beaded on their foreheads, yet they remained fully focused, not daring to relax for even a moment. The vortexes were appearing more frequently, becoming increasingly unpredictable. Once trapped in a vortex, even if they managed to break free, it would likely deplete a significant portion of their energy. And with no end to the judgment sea in sight, once their spiritual energy was exhausted, continuing further would be nearly impossible. Swoosh! Another spiritual energy vortex, around 100 meters in diameter, suddenly formed in the front right. The vortex spun like the mouth of a monstrous sea creature, devouring toward Mu Chen and Luo Li. Black lightning erupted from Mu Chen's body, flashing like lightning, and he swiftly avoided the vortex's range. Luo Li, with her foot on the Luo God sword, released a sharp sword aura. The intensity of it tore through the liquid-like spiritual energy, creating a small void through which she passed unharmed. After dodging the vortex, Mu Chen let out a relieved breath. After persevering for half an hour, his body had begun to adjust to the spiritual energy pressure here. Even with his strong physique, he could feel a slight stinging sensation on his skin. It was clear that others must be relying on their robust, spiritual energy to resist. But even so, this couldn't last. Mu Chen could sense that, as time passed, the surrounding spiritual energy pressure was rapidly intensifying. And when resisting this energy pressure, they couldn't afford to be too reckless. The energy here was incredibly violent. Any intense fluctuation of spiritual energy would only result in even larger vortexes. The pressure of spiritual energy here is growing stronger. Perhaps the end is near, Luo Li whispered to Mu Chen, getting closer to him. The pressure of spiritual energy here had become so intense that even their level of strength could barely withstand it. However, it was unlikely that the deans of the 5 great academies would set up tests far beyond their limits. If that were the case, no one would have been able to survive the judgment sea. Mu Chen nodded slightly, then his gaze shifted to the left and right, where Ji Xian, Wenqing Xian, and Shui Tianhe were advancing swiftly. Due to the increasing density of the spiritual energy vortexes, their positions were gradually starting to converge. Wenqing Xian also noticed them at this moment, and immediately waved her jade-like hand at them. A bright smile appeared on her face, her delicate features covered in a sheen of sweat, making her all the more captivating. Luo Li responded with a gentle smile, and Mu Chen smiled as well. Within the judgment sea, the 5 figures moved like streaks of light, using various techniques to push their speed to the limit. However, overall, there wasn't much difference in their speeds, and they closely pursued one another. Mu Chen had activated the Thunder God body to its maximum. Dark lightning flashed across his body, but these bolts would soon be suppressed into his body by the intense pressure of spiritual energy, causing sharp stabs of pain. At first, this pain frustrated Mu Chen, as it prevented him from fully focusing to sense the sudden appearance of spiritual energy vortexes. It was the reason why he had been dragged into the vortex several times. However, after some time, this discomfort suddenly gave way to a tingling sensation, as if his muscles were being tempered by thunder. Moreover, Mu Chen felt that the power inside him seemed to be subtly increasing. This discovery greatly surprised Mu Chen. After a brief period of contemplation, he finally understood. When the dark lightning on his body was forced into his muscles by the immense pressure of spiritual energy, the lightning would move through his muscles, refining them. This was what caused the tingling sensation. So that's how it works, Mu Chen realized. He hadn't expected that the spiritual energy pressure here would have such a refining effect. This could be an opportunity to temper my body and strengthen my power, Mu Chen thought, his mind shifting as he decided to focus on enhancing his strength. With that in mind, he stopped resisting the spiritual energy pressure and began to relax his body. As Mu Chen immersed himself in the refining effect of the spiritual energy pressure, he didn't notice that Ji Xian and Xue Tianhe had started to close in on them while skillfully avoiding the spiritual energy vortexes. Their approach was subtle, and even Luo Li didn't notice because they had been moving at high speeds to avoid the constant vortexes. By the time Luo Li became aware of their proximity, Ji Xian and Xue Tianhe were already less than 100 meters away. A look of caution appeared in Luo Li's clear eyes. When it came to vigilance, she was no weaker than Mu Chen. After all, she was the future queen of the Luo god clan, and her wariness of people's intentions was even sharper than Mu Chen's. However, at this moment, Ji Xian and Xue Tianhe seemed to be well prepared. They noticed Luo Li's sudden wariness and exchanged a faint smile, though their smiles were cold and sinister. Boom! The vast and powerful spiritual energy erupted from both of them almost instantly. This triggered a tremendous disturbance in the surrounding Judgment Sea. The spiritual liquid in this area was already extremely volatile, and now, with the trigger, it was as if thunder struck fire, causing the entire 1,000-meter radius to violently surge within a few breaths. Woo-woo! The ripples of spiritual energy spread out rapidly, and massive spiritual energy vortexes began to form at an alarming rate, covering this vast region. Luo Li's expression immediately changed. Whoosh! Before she could act, two powerful streams of spiritual energy lashed out from Ji Xian and Xue Tianhe's hands. However, these streams of energy didn't target Mu Chen and Luo Li directly. Instead, they shot toward the area surrounding them. Boom! Spiritual energy exploded outward. Around Mu Chen and the others, dozens of spiritual energy vortexes instantly formed, enveloping them in a matter of seconds. Because these vortexes were so close to each other, they rapidly connected and merged, forming even larger vortexes. You guys! At this moment, when Qing Xian also noticed their movements, and her face immediately changed. The spiritual energy vortexes here were so massive that they nearly enveloped everyone. Swish! Ji Xian and Xue Tianhe retreated sharply. As they did, they flicked their fingers, sending streaks of spiritual energy whips slashing outward, further intensifying the already violent atmosphere of the area. The Judgment Sea was particularly sensitive to fluctuations in spiritual energy, and their timing was spot on. They attacked precisely when Mu Chen and his companion were in the most vulnerable position, acting without hesitation. Their attacks were ruthless, with nearly all their spiritual energy exploding out at once. The range of the vortexes expanded to cover 1,000 zhang radius, almost creating a massive supervortex. Moreover, all 5 of them were caught within the vortex, but Mu Chen and his companion were positioned right at the center. Move! Seeing that the vortex had taken shape, Ji Xian and Xue Tianhe immediately made a decision, without any hesitation. With a single grip, they summoned ancient jade pieces in their hands and shattered them. As the jade broke apart, the space around them twisted slightly. In a flash of light, their figures disappeared, only to reappear 1,000 zhang away, escaping the reach of the super vortex. Clearly, these two had been prepared in advance. Meanwhile, when Qing Xian cast a resentful glance at their retreating figures, then suddenly formed a seal with her delicate hands. Golden light spread around her, and a pair of massive golden phoenix wings appeared behind her. Boom! The phoenix wings fluttered, and when Qing Xuan's speed surged, allowing her to break free from the super vortex's grip and charge out. Since her position was on the edge, escaping didn't require much effort. After breaking free, when Qing Xian looked anxiously toward the center of the super vortex, there, the two figures seemed to grow more and more blurred. In the heart of the vortex, Mu Chen, who had been immersed in his own thoughts, was roused by the commotion. He shifted his gaze, quickly understanding what was happening. His expression darkened. These two guys truly never give up. What should we do? Luo Li asked urgently, struggling against the terrifying pull from the vortex's center. At this rate, we'll be sucked into the vortex. Mu Chen took a deep breath, his pitch-black eyes filled with coldness. The suction here is unstoppable. If we delay any longer, we won't be able to get out, Mu Chen said. Let me get you out. Luo Li was startled, then bit her lip, saying, You still have a battle with Ji Xian. You can't miss it, so I'll get you out. Before she could exert force, Mu Chen had already grasped her wrist with his other hand. A smile appeared on his youthful face. This battle is mine to fight, but trust me, I'm not weak enough to need saving. Wait for me. Mu Chen's palm suddenly exploded with spiritual energy, forcing Luo Li back. Her clear eyes locked onto him. Eventually, she clenched her silver teeth and, with a single step, the Luo God sword erupted with a terrifying sword aura. The sword energy wrapped around her figure, cutting through the dense spiritual liquid, and she finally pierced through the super vortex. As Luo Li shot through the super vortex, Mu Chen's body was pulled into the vortex by the terrifying force and quickly disappeared. The breathtaking scene unfolding in the Judgment Sea was reflected on the clear mirror, and countless students watched in shock, their faces filled with disbelief. Then, a wave of murmurs erupted. Ji Xian and Xue Tianhe are truly insidious. Such a ruthless move. With this, Mu Chen is eliminated. He was one of the top contenders for the championship. Well, it's not exactly cruel. After all, Dean Tiansheng had said before that no matter what methods were used, Mu Chen would fall for it. He can only blame himself for being careless. This kind of victory feels like it lacks honor. Countless loud voices erupted, with some expressing disdain and others continuing to support. In an instant, the vast space became unusually lively. This Ji Xian is truly shameless. Naturally, the most furious were the disciples of Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Each of them was so angry that their faces turned ashen. Originally, with Mu Chen and Luo Li in their ranks, they had a clear advantage. But now, with Mu Chen harmed and only Luo Li remaining, that advantage had vanished in an instant. What a disgusting guy. Yushi's face also showed intense anger as she exclaimed. Yi Qingling and the others sighed softly. Who could have imagined that Ji Xian would be so despicable, striking at such a moment? However, they also understood that, according to the rules, Ji Xian had not violated any. It's okay. Even if brother Mu Chen can no longer fight, there's still sister Luo Li. She won't let Ji Xian get away with it. Xun'er tried to comfort everyone. Ling Shi, at this moment, furrowed her brows slightly. She gazed at the mirror of judgment, sensing the overwhelming spiritual energy pressure from the super vortex. She realized that even a master who had overcome the triple divine soul tribulation would struggle to break out from there. As for Mu Chen's strength, he had only passed the first divine soul tribulation, so his chances of escaping were slim. This Ji Xian is really a disaster. Ling Shi's face turned cold, and a trace of murderous intent flashed through her beautiful eyes. While the entire space was in an uproar, the 5 deans in the sky had noticed the scene. The dean of Great Song Academy's face darkened, and he cast a cold glance at Dean Tiansheng, who responded with a faint smile. The dean of Great Song Academy clenched his hand tightly in his sleeve, gradually suppressing the anger in his heart. He knew that getting angry now would accomplish nothing. Although Ji Xian's methods were vile, he had indeed stayed within the rules. Now, we'll just have to watch Luo Li. The dean of Great Song Academy sighed quietly in his heart. Fortunately, Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy hadn't been completely wiped out. Though Mu Chen had failed, Luo Li, the girl, was not weak either. She had hidden potential, and Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy still had a chance. Inside Judgment Sea, outside the super vortex, when Qing Xian anxiously looked toward the swirling vortex. Not far from her, Ji Xian and Xue Tianhe stood with smiles on their faces. Their collaboration this time was perfect. Whoosh! As they smiled, a sharp sound of wind tearing through the air came from within the vortex. A graceful figure emerged, and with a flash, she appeared outside the super vortex. It was Luo Li. Ji Xian and Xue Tianhe were a bit surprised to see Luo Li break out, but their expressions remained unchanged. As long as they could trap Mu Chen inside, their goal was achieved. Luo Li. When Qing Xian was overjoyed when she saw Luo Li come out. Swish! However, Luo Li's face was icy, and she didn't respond to when Qingxian. Instead, her delicate hand formed a sword seal, and the Luo god's sword soared out. Two sharp sword chi tore through the powerful spiritual energy, liquid and headed straight for Ji Xian and Xue Tianhe. Seeing Luo Li attack without hesitation, Ji Xian and Xue Tianhe's expressions shifted slightly. They waved their sleeves, releasing massive waves of spiritual energy that collided with the sword chi. Boom! Spiritual energy fluctuations erupted, shaking the entire region and scattering the spiritual energy liquid. Luo Li's face remained cold, her hand gripping the Luo god's sword tightly. A surge of powerful spiritual energy erupted from her body, clearly preparing for a full-on battle. Luo Li, are you really going to fight us alone here? Ji Xian, seeing Luo Li's aggressive move, spoke in a deep voice. Heh, no wonder you're the future queen of the Luo god clan. Your courage is impressive, Xue Tianhe sneered, gazing at Luo Li mockingly. If she intended to fight both of them at once, she likely wouldn't have the upper hand, even with the Luo god sword. Luo Li, don't be rash. When Qingxian rushed over and appeared beside Luo Li, grabbing her jade arm and speaking earnestly, this is not the place to fight. Luo Li's gaze was ice-cold as she stared at Ji Xian and Xue Tianhe. Her hand gripped the Luo god's sword tightly, and the killing intent emanating from her was unmistakable. Luo Li, within Judgment Sea, any method is allowed according to the rules. Mu Chen's fate is just the result of his own carelessness. Ji Xian saw the icy coldness in Luo Li's eyes and felt a surge of anger rise within him. He sneered, I'm doing him a favor. If he lacks this much cunning, he should remain a small character. Do you really think I wouldn't dare to make a move here? Luo Li's crisp, icy voice seemed devoid of any emotion. The tone, filled with a chilling coldness, made the surrounding liquid spiritual energy ripple with disturbance. Ji Xian, if you want to make a move, we can try it right here. When Qingxian clenched her delicate hand, and the golden war spear appeared in her grasp, she said coldly. She was quite repulsed by Ji Xian and his group's previous actions, and with her bond to Luo Li, when Qingxian certainly wouldn't allow Ji Xian and the others to team up against her. Seeing the stance of the two women, Ji Xian's eyes narrowed slightly. He regarded both of them with caution. If they fought here in the turbulent Judgment Sea, causing a dangerous spiritual energy vortex, none of them would escape, and he clearly didn't want to be stopped here. Heh, Mu Chen really has great luck with women, Xue Tianhe remarked indifferently, a hint of sarcasm in his voice. Of course, beneath the sarcasm, there was an unmistakable jealousy typical of men. After all, the two girls before him were exceptional in ways that even his heart couldn't help but stir. And now, they were both protecting Mu Chen. This was something that made him feel extremely uncomfortable. If he really has the ability, then he should break through on his own. Otherwise, this time, he won't even get the chance to fight me. Ji Xian smiled faintly. He glanced at Luo Li and said, if you want to help him save face, then bring out the mirror of judgment. No matter what you want, I'm here to accompany you to the end. As soon as he finished speaking, Ji Xian stopped wasting words, turned, and swiftly sped toward the end of the Judgment Sea. Seeing this, Xue Tianhe immediately followed. When Qingxian watched the two leave, the golden war spear disappeared from her hand. She sighed helplessly, her beautiful face cold as she gazed at Luo Li. Who would have thought that Mu Chen would fall here? This guy. When Qingxian tilted her head, looking at the massive super vortex, the pulling force emanating from it caused her to frown. If they were to fall in, escaping might be impossible. He will come out, Luo Li said softly. When Qingxian chuckled bitterly, unsure of what to say. A vortex like that was something neither of them could escape from once caught. The possibility of Mu Chen making it out was slim. Whether he comes out or not, we should get moving. You can't just let Ji Xian take the championship, can you? When Qingxian looked at Luo Li stared at the super vortex. Finally, she nodded lightly. Right now, she could not afford to stay. If Mu Chen couldn't make it out, then she had to stop Ji Xian. Luo Li bit her lip and then released the Luo God sword. Her jade-like feet stepped on it, and with a burst of sword energy, she sped forward, her dazzling long hair fluttering, looking as stunning as ever. when Qingxian glanced at the super vortex with a complex expression in her eyes before following suit. In the ensuing judgment sea, there were no more disturbances. Although the spiritual energy pressure grew stronger, all four of them possessed extraordinary strength, allowing them to endure. After another 10 minutes of enduring, the chaotic ocean suddenly rippled with unusual fluctuations. A brilliant light gate appeared at the far end. Seeing the light gate, the four of them silently breathed a sigh of relief. They had finally made it to the end. Otherwise, their spiritual energy might have been completely drained. Whoosh! For streaks of light shot through the air, and without hesitation, they all rushed through the light gate. Above the golden battle stage, the mirror of judgment hovered quietly. Sizzle! Under the gaze of countless eyes, the mirror of judgment suddenly burst into a dazzling light. Inside that brilliance, four figures shot out and hovered in midair. When these four figures appeared, a roar of excitement and cheers erupted across the world. 4 teams had entered the mirror of judgment, but in the end, only 4 people came out. The cruel competition left everyone deeply shaken. Looks like Mu Chen isn't here. Some noticed that Mu Chen was not among the 4 figures, and sighed with regret. Who would have thought that this unstoppable dark horse would fall just before the finish line? Next, the gazes shot towards the sky, where 4 figures stood suspended in midair. The moment they broke through the mirror of judgment, the spiritual energy that had once been depleted within them almost instantly surged back, and to an even greater degree than before they entered. Clearly, breaking through the mirror of judgment had brought them some benefits. Luo Li stood on her sword, and amidst the overwhelming cheers, her beautiful eyes locked onto the massive mirror of judgment. She took a deep breath and slowly clenched her jade-like hand. Mu Chen, you must come out.